It's the talk of the town, I said the talk of the town. JCPL Show is now the talk of the town. Lots of information and entertainment too. You'll be quite excited when you see what's here for you. The talk of the town, yes, the talk of the town. Tune right in and see what you can do. Meet a local hero or a new friend for you. Listen to some music and enjoy an artist too. Get to know our staff and all the things they like to do. The JCPL Show is here. We hope you'll come from far and near. Come to the talk of the town.
Hello, welcome to the JCPL Show. I'm your host, Sarah Schote. This show is brought to you by the Jessamine County Public Library, located on Main Street in Nicholasville, Kentucky. You might know us as the place with all the books, and that is true. We have a lot of books available to browse here in our physical collection and virtually. However, there's a lot more to JCPL than that. We also offer family-friendly programming. We have a creative space complete with recording studio and 3D printers, and we also offer online subject-specific tutoring for students of all ages, and our library of things, where you can check out sewing machines, Wi-Fi hotspots, and more. Our mission at JCPL is to enrich the community of Jessamine County through ideas, information, and cultural opportunities. During this first ever episode of the JCPL Show, you'll get to meet our staff as they interview people from Jessamine County. As you watch, be sure to comment and share below. We would love to hear from you and answer any of your questions. Use the hashtag JCPL Show. This episode will feature amazing adoptable animals, spotlight interviews with people from Jessamine County who are doing great things in our community, music from Gail, Wynters, and a fun segment on science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. But first, we'll hear from our adult outreach librarian, Perry Costley, as she goes out in the community to interview the Jessamine County Food Pantry. Take it away, Perry.
Hi, I am Perry Costley. I am the Adult Outreach Librarian at the Jessamine County Public Library, and I am here with Paul Huber, who is the Director of the Jessamine County Food Pantry. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
So first off, we think it's really important to note that the pantry is open right now and serving those in need. So could you tell us where the pantry is located and its hours of operation?
Sure. We actually rent space from Nicholasville Christian Church. We're at 104 South 2nd Street, and for people that have been around a while, we're right across the street from the sheriff's office. Hours of operation, let's see, Tuesdays from noon until 4, Thursdays from 2 until 6, and Fridays from 10 until noon.
And what's the best way for a person to contact you or contact the pantry?
Yeah, the best way is usually by phone, and our number would be 859-312-4003. You can find that on our Facebook page, or you can. The phone takes it's a cell phone, so you can text also. So, and if we don't answer, leave a message.
So if someone does come in during your hours of operation, what does one need to, in order to receive food? Could you walk us through that process?
Sure. We need to have a photo ID, and we need to have a utility bill or a lease or a receipt from a utility or a rent receipt. And we don't take other kinds of mail because the federal government says that we can only help a household once per month. Generally, if you have multiple adults living in the same household, the utilities are all in one person's name. So that avoids double dipping, which is not a huge problem, but it's one of those things that we try to take care of.
And if someone has an expired ID, I know it's really hard right now to get those updated. There's some difficulties there.
Yeah, you know, I don't even look at the date. I look at the picture and it's like, well, yeah, that could be you. That's as long as I can read your name and look at your face, I'm happy.
How has COVID-19 affected your service at the pantry?
Well, before, we're actually set up like a little grocery store, but we had to go back. We can't keep people separated by 6 feet, um, trying to do the store model. So we've gone back to pre-made boxes. And so we have clients don't come into the pantry anymore. We meet them at the door and they sign their paperwork. We have a box for them, maybe a supplemental box depending on the size of their family. And then we've got some items that we ask if you want, you want orange juice, you want, flour, some things like that. And then we have a list of meat that's available, cuts of meat, and you get to choose X number of cuts of meat. So there is some choice still, but not nearly to the level that there was before.
Have you noticed, and are you serving more people right now than you were before?
March and April, our numbers jumped about 20%. We were just under 500 for both of those months. May, after the stimulus checks came out, our numbers went below what we had been averaging because people don't want to come to the pantry if they don't feel they need to, which is very cool. But we're back up into the mid 300s that we've been at for a while. And we'll see how things fly with, once school is back in session, how things will change that way. So,
How many people do you serve regularly?
We average right around 350 households, which comes out to 12 to 1,300 individuals. And we can only serve a household once per calendar month, which is, again, it's a federal regulation having to do with the free commodities. Some other things on Mondays, we often have tables out by the street that have baked goods or fresh produce or pizzas on them, and people can come in, just come in and take what they need from there. They don't have to sign in. It doesn't count towards your once per month.
So for those watching who might want to help the pantry, what would you suggest? What are you most in need of right now? Does that be money or food donations or volunteers?
Money is always good. I can actually make the money go a little farther, actually quite a bit farther, because God's Pantry Food Bank doesn't charge a lot for the produce or the commodities, the canned goods that we get from them. But people like to give, they like to give things. It's, it's no fun to give cash. It's like, So we'll take either one. Volunteers, I have two needs with volunteers. I needed someone an assistant truck driver. We actually have 22 stops a week at various stores in the county to pick up donations. But one of our guys had a stroke and he's just not able to do it anymore. So we're down to one. So anyway, that's our biggest need. The other one is we get a truck from God's Pantry Food Bank in pretty much every Monday morning. It can be anywhere from 2,000 pounds worth of food to 7,000 pounds. We need help, young, undestroyed backs to help unload, because we do it all by hand. It's all on pallets on the truck. We get it off the pallets, hand it down to people. They put it on another pallet and we pallet jack it into the pantry and put it all away. So it's a very physical thing for a couple of hours a week. Those are our biggest needs right now. The way we're working with the boxes, we only need 3 or 4 volunteers when we're open. When we go back to the store model, we need 12 to 14 people to run that correctly. So right now, we've laid off some of our older volunteers or the ones who are have low immunity for their safety and our safety. So most of them will come back, but we can always use people who have initiative and are wanting to work. Most of our clients only come here for 6 months or less because something happened in their life and they needed some assistance with food. Somewhere 30 or 35% of our clients come every month. And they tend to be retirees on very, very low income. One of the problems with people who work low-paying jobs their whole life, when they age up to Social Security and they start getting it, their Social Security payment is lower than it might be. So we've got people, you know, their rent is $500 a month and their check is $700 a month, and they've still got to pay utilities and all the other things. So we're their stopgap. The intention is not for us to provide all the food a person would need to get through the month, but we are very good supplemental. So, yeah.
Well, is there anything, we're wrapping up now, so is there anything that I haven't covered or we haven't covered that you think people should know or you would like them to know?
The only thing I would say is come to the pantry if you need help. We are here, and if the choice is, you know, do you pay your utility bill or do you eat? Or do you get the medications you need or do you eat? Come to us. We're averaging about 70 pounds of food for the smaller families. The larger families will actually walk out with 100 pounds of food, depending on the choices that they make. So we can be the difference between eating and not eating, or getting, you know, your meds or not. There is no shame with needing help. And that's the other issue. We're, particularly people, you know, my age or close to it, we're supposed to be self-reliant and never ask for help. And it's, you know, we all need help every now and then. And we're here to help. And we will treat you like a human being and not make you feel bad for needing assistance. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thanks so much, Paul. That's important to hear, I think.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's always fun to do these kinds of things.
We love seeing all the ways that our community can give back to those in need. Thank you so much to the Jessamine County Food Pantry for all that they do. Up next, Kate Irwin, our Children's Program Coordinator, will introduce us to her animal friends over at the Jessamine County Animal Shelter. Over to you, Kate.
Hello, I'm Kate Irwin with the animal feature of the JCPL Show. Today, we're at the Jessamine County Animal Shelter with Animal Shelter Director Tim Brown. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Tim, how long have you worked at the shelter?
I've been here for 2 years. I've been doing the animal control field for 7 years.
Oh, wow. So you bet you've seen a lot of different things throughout this.
I have seen a lot, yes.
Yes. Now, what's your favorite part of working here at the shelter?
I would say the favorite part is the animals. I mean, you have to love animals in order to work in an animal shelter. You have to have a passion for it, and I think everyone here has that passion, and we all share the same goal where we just love animals, and we want to make sure we find them the right homes.
Absolutely. That's so great to hear and so important as well. So who is this? Who do you have with you today?
I have Sporty with me. Sporty is 6 weeks old, and he is a lab mix.
He's super cute. Now, is he up for adoption?
He is available for adoption right now.
Wonderful. Well, guys, if you're watching this, come check out Sporty. He's a cute little guy. All right. Now, what is something that people might find interesting or surprising about your job?
I would say the biggest one is a lot of people don't understand and know exactly everything that we do.
Sure.
From animal control officers out in the field, day in and day out, 24/7, 7 days a week, to all that goes into cleaning and making sure that the animals have a safe place, a safe haven, while they're here in our care.
Sure. Absolutely. Those are all very important things. So
Absolutely.
we're glad to be able to get that information out to the public. Now, funding. We know you guys, it takes a lot of money to keep this place up and running. How do you guys get your funding?
We generally primarily get our funding through the fiscal court.
Okay.
However, we do from businesses and individuals for their generosity. They always like to donate to the animal shelter.
Sure.
And we definitely appreciate it because, that goes into a lot for us to enrich the lives for these animals.
Very important. That's great to know. So if patrons or if the public is interested in giving donations, what sort of things do you need?
So a lot of the times we need cleaning supplies, so Dawn dishwashing liquid, detergent, clothing detergent, bleach, food, cat and dog food, wet and dry both, treats, anything of that nature, anything that we can just make sure that we're enriching the lives for these animals.
Sure. And if they want to drop off donations, can they just bring it here?
Absolutely. Right now, due to the current pandemic, we are closed to the public, but we are appointments only.
Okay.
But we do have a spot in the front where people can drop off donations and we'll pick it up.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So is there a way to find out if you have a specific need or what you need more of at a certain time? Is there a way the public can find that out?
Absolutely. On our Facebook page, which anybody can just go onto Facebook and they can type in Jessamine County Animal Care and Control.
Okay.
We normally put out blast maybe once a week or so of the different things that we need and the wish list that we have for the shelter.
Great. And how about volunteers? Do you take volunteers?
We do take volunteers, and all they would have to do is just go online to our website, which is www.adoptjcacc.com.
Okay.
And they can go on and they can fill out a volunteer application.
Perfect. Well, I hope we get a lot of volunteers after this broadcast. Now, I know you have some events coming up. One in which you partner with the library every year, the Boo Wow Walk. It's a great event, and you can dress your animals up. Unfortunately, this year we're going to have to be virtual, as most things are. So it is going to be coming up in October, and it's going to be, it is, like I said, going to be virtual, but we are still going to be doing it. So check the Jessamine County Public Library's website for more information about that, and you can participate in our Boo Wow Walk every year. All right. Now, Tim, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers today?
No, I think that's it.
Come by and check out the cute
absolutely.
kitties and puppies and help out the animal shelter. They're doing good work here.
If you'd like to take home your own forever friend, you can get in touch with the Jessamine County Animal Care and Control. Their number is on the screen below. Up next, we're going to shine the spotlight on a notable Jessamine County resident, Susan Bradish. Our adult programming librarian, Les Lehman, is reporting.
Hi, I'm Les. In this segment of Spotlight, we're going to be talking to a real Renaissance woman, Susan Bradish. She's had a career as a veterinarian, then explored the arts, and soon she'll be commissioned as a pastor. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, Les.
We've had Susan here before in several regards. She's taught some classes for us, and we've had some exhibits of her work. But I think we're going to start this interview by dealing with your first career as a veterinarian. So, what made you decide to become a veterinarian, Susan?
I have a good story about that. First off, I am not one of those people who always wanted to be a vet, which many veterinarians fall into that category.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to figure it out, which is a whole different story. But when I got my bachelor's degree in zoology, my first job using that degree, I was working at a veterinary hospital as an assistant. And the man that I worked for did a fair amount of orthopedic surgery. And we had a little dog come in she was only about a year old. And her name was Hau'oli. Now, I lived in Hawaii at that time. And so that is the Hawaiian word for happy.
Aww.
But let me tell you, that dog was anything but happy. She had been hit by a car, and she had a broken femur. So the big bone in your leg between your knee and your hip, and it was fractured. So when she came into us, my boss said, yes, we can fix this. It's going to cost this amount of money. And it took the client 2 or 3 days to gather that up. In the meantime, we housed Hau'oli and took care of her. I mainly did all the caretaking there. We had her on some pain medication, but she was miserable. I mean, now she still had 3 good legs, and I could still put her on a leash and she would hobble outside and go potty and stuff. but she was just miserable. So I was only 2 weeks into this job, had never worked for a vet before. We take her to surgery, I helped with the anesthetics, and it was my responsibility to oversee her as she woke up. So he plated her leg. He put a plate with screws on that bone in her femur, and that was fascinating to watch. So as I was waking her up, within half an hour, 45 minutes of her waking up, that little dog stood up, put weight on all 4 feet, and wagged her tail. And truly was happy. And that moment, I looked at that little dog, and for the first time, she didn't have pain in her eyes. And I thought to myself, I want to do this. And so that was it. At that point, I just made the decision I would work toward getting into vet school.
Now, I know you've done some world traveling, and it sounds like you've had some world travels in vet school as well. You have any good stories?
Well, I did do a lot of traveling in veterinary school, and my biggest adventure was when I graduated, I wanted to work in developing countries, helping small farmers and villagers to produce better protein sources, food animals, for their diets. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I better go get some experience before I graduate so I know if I can handle it. So I eventually gathered everything I needed and got all the arrangements made and spent a month in India.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know a soul in India. I had one contact at a veterinary school that was pretty far north of where I flew into.
And did you speak any language, or did most people speak English?
Well, some people spoke English because India is a country that has 2 national languages. English is one of, and I thought, oh, well, it's a national language, everyone will speak it. Well, that's not the case, I can tell you. Maybe it is now, but it wasn't then. I guess in India, the most significant experience that I had was I went to the edge of the Rajasthan desert to a place where they have a camel research center. And I rode with a veterinarian there to a call for a family that had a water buffalo that was in dystocia. She was having trouble calving. And this one water buffalo was very significant in the welfare of this family. And I mean, we're talking an extended family. But this water buffalo produces milk, and many of the people in India are Hindus and they don't eat meat, but they do eat dairy products. So I went out there with him on a scooter. The buffalo was pretty far gone, and she ended up dying. And I mean, it was tragic. I was stunned at the degree of impact that a single animal can have for a family like that. I mean, there were probably 25 people that this was going to affect. And who knows whether they all would have enough to eat as a result of this buffalo dying. So anyway, that was a pretty eye-opening experience.
That's amazing. How long did you practice veterinary medicine?
About 12 years. I loved my job as a veterinarian, but I also ended up having an awful lot of responsibility in administrative areas. And it wasn't what I had gone to school for, and other things called, so.
Well, that brings me to my next question. You were ready for the next adventure, and the next adventure happened to be in art. Now, did you go to school to do all the work that you do, or did you take individual classes? I know you work in a lot of different
mediums. Yeah, that's right. I actually decided to take a couple of classes while I was still in veterinary medicine, just kind of in the evenings. I took a watercolor class and I took a stained glass class. And I realized that though it would be hard to leave veterinary medicine because my identity was so tied up in that I actually really wanted to get some formal art training. So that's what I did. My husband was very supportive of it, and I signed up for classes at EKU. So I did. I went through that whole program in the fine arts department, and I focused on metalsmithing and printmaking. So I have a BFA from EKU.
Susan, you've come and taught a few classes for us before, and we do all kinds of arts and crafts here. And what I hear most often is people coming in and saying, Oh, well, I like to play around, but I'm not very creative, or I could never do art. There are a lot of people who believe that art is only for artists, and it's hard, and not everybody can create things. How do you feel about that?
I'm glad you asked that question, actually, because I have some very strong feelings, very strong opinions about that. I guess there's 2 points of view that I want to bring out here. One is, I would ask that person, were you born knowing how to brush your teeth? Were you born knowing how to drive a car? No, of course not. This is something you have to learn, and so is drawing and painting and collage and design and all these different aspects of being creative. Most people are not innately born with all of that just ready to pop out. And the other thing that I would say, this other point I want to make is, I believe that God did create humans in some fashion in God's own image. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I believe strongly that one thing it means is that this most grand of creators, God Almighty, put in each one of us this tiny spark of creativity that is in God. That there is part of that in every single one of us. And I think that seeking to create things, just to make something, it doesn't have to be some fancy painting. I mean, even cooking a delicious meal is honoring the Creator. And that's the reason it's so fulfilling, I believe.
That's a wonderful point of view. That's a wonderful point of view. So I think that maybe you've got a few things that you can show us here today that you have created.
Yes, actually, I've got here. I'll start just by showing that this is a metalsmithing piece I made when I was in school. This was one of the last things I made. This is something called a torque. This was made with a single flat sheet of metal. And it's bent in 2 directions at the same time into this sort of hoop. It's a very ancient style of neck piece. Yeah. And then I also brought the tiny little print that is a wood engraving. It's kind of a very specialized type of woodcut. And then recently I've started in with some sewing stuff that I want to do because I'm in training to become the commissioned lay pastor. And my goal is to create retreats and Bible studies, if you will, that incorporate art and creative endeavors.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that people could come to a retreat and not only learn about scripture and so forth, but have the experience of making something themselves, and also the experience of seeing a visual of a particular Bible scripture. And so this is a banner. It's a small banner that I made. It's obviously the burning bush. This is the first of a series that I'm doing that will be used in a retreat. And then the other one I have to show you but this is a technique that I learned in Italy where you paint a picture onto parchment paper that you bake with.
Yeah.
So it has Teflon on the surface. So you use acrylic metallic paints and paint on there, make your whole picture, and then you can use transfer technique. Transfer that directly onto fabric, organza, and then you sandwich it into a quilt and quilt it on the machine.
Wow,
and you can kind of see on the back side how quilting.
Look at, so all this is machine quilted?
So
fantastic. Susan, it's been wonderful talking with you, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Les. It's been great to be here.
Thanks for being on the show, Susan. We're so glad that you're part of our community here in Jessamine County. Up next, we will feature our band and welcome them to the JCPL Show stage, Gail Wynters and Co. Gail Wynters is a successful jazz musician and a Kentucky native. After the band plays, you'll be able to hear a little bit more about her story.
A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. When I found it day by day, I thought of all we love. know there is a deep end to my ocean. Well, there is a deeper deep, yes, see, than any ocean. Day by day, you'll make me know my dreams come true. Well, day by day, I want you to know that I'm yours alone. But if love is here to stay, as we go through the years, day by day. Day by day, I'm falling more in love with you. But day by day, I want you to know there isn't any end to my devotion. Well, it is a deeper deal, you see it, than any ocean. Day by day, you're making all my love true. Well, day by day, I want you to know that I'm yours alone. Well, love is here to stay. And we go through the years, day by day. The great Ross Whitaker. That's the great Eli Utah Vera. Day by day, I'm falling more in love with you. And day by day, I want you to know. Strip you back. Day by day, you're making all my dreams come true. Well, day by day, I want you to know that. Trick Bradish. Day by day, I'm falling more in love with you. Well, day by day, I want you to know there is a deep end to my devotion. Well, it is deeper here, yes, the ocean. Well, I find it day by day, you're making all my dreams come true. Well, day by day, I want you to know that I'm yours alone. Well, let me see you to stay. And we go through the years. We go through the years. And we go through the years. Every day. Yeah. Oh, my pleasure working with the great Ross Whitaker on guitar. We've got Eli Utah Veroff, bass here, and the one and only Trip Bratton on drums. Anyway, that song was by Paul Weston. He wrote the music and Sammy Kahn wrote the lyrics.
Hi, I'm Les, and I'm here with our first musical guest on the JCPL show today, the wonderful Miss Gail Wynters. Gail, it's great to have you back at the library.
It's great to be here. I love this place. This has got to be the best library bar done in all of Kentucky, maybe beyond. I even checked out a ukulele here. It's fantastic. And a sewing machine at one point, thinking I could sew, but I really can't.
Wow, we get music and advertisement from Gail. That's so great. So Gail has performed for us a few times at JCPL, so some of our viewers might recognize her from there, or you may have seen her play in a bunch of different places around Lexington. But Gail is actually pretty famous. We're kind of lucky to have her. So you may have seen her in all kinds of spaces. But what I would like to do first, Gail, is tell the audience, you've been singing since you could walk or since you could talk.
Yep, that's true.
Tell the audience a little bit about your musical beginnings and your musical family here in Kentucky.
Okay, I'll tell you this story that comes from uncles and aunts and your mom and your dad and everybody that was there at the time. They say I started singing when my parents were up on the platform, when they were in church. My two older sisters were there. The lady holding me, I kept wiggling, trying to get down, and she finally loosened her hold on me, and I crawled up the platform and stood beside my sister and started singing at 18 months. I knew all the music, and I made up those lyrics. Maybe that was a precursor to my jazz days, because I was scatting baby scat, at 18 months of age. And from that time on, really, we just, that's what you did. That's what we did as a family. We were singers, and we would sing all over the place in the South, and even the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. We would be with like the Happy Goodman family, the Statesmen, a lot of those groups that were out at that time that really were wonderful singers. And we would have all night singing conventions, they would call them. And we'd sleep during the day and sing at night. And then it would later become my sisters. And I would be singing as the Shibble Sisters. And then we all went our ways. And my other three sisters started their trio. And of course, I was off in New York, and so that's it.
So how'd you end up going to New York? How did that happen?
It's a long story, I'm telling you. It's a very long story.
Give us the short version, if you can.
The short version, this very wealthy man, P.A.B. Widener, had seen me at the Campbell House, and he had a song in his mind that he thought that he had written. He thought it was just the best song in the world. I'd know you anywhere. It just hit him, and he thought, somebody's got to do that song. And he thought of me. And so I get a call from this person that was working at Barney Miller's here in town, and they chased me down. They found me through my parents. And he said, I want you to go to New York, and I've got the producer, and I've got all of this. And one of the songs I want you to sing is I Know You Anywhere. So he sponsored me as a singer.
Wow.
My first place of residence was the stand-up across from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I mean, it was really high class.
Wow.
But crazy. That's how I got to New York, though. That's how it all happened. And then he sponsored me for 3 years, and then I stayed there and became, kind of the jazz lady that I was, I guess,
So you were in New York for 25 years, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that was a long time, and
you played with a lot of interesting people. Who
Yeah.
were some of your favorite people that you really liked to play
oh my goodness, I'm so lucky. I just played with all the great jazz players, a lot of the great old jazz players, Clark Terry, Tito Pointy was in on some of the things, believe it or not. And Lionel Hampton, that's the older group. And then the Marquis, Danny Gottlieb, Pete Levin, all those more current jazz musicians. I played with Michael and Randy Brecker, and Joe Beck, and those types. Billy Cobham was on one of my albums, a great drummer. And it goes on and on. Bernard Purdy. I mean, it was, listen, New York City's a small little place,
Really?
Nice little small island once you get used to it. Yeah.
Or once you get in a certain circle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Tell me one of the craziest stories. What's one of the funnest stories you've had touring or being in the music business? Give me a good one.
Oh, this is so funny. I was doing jazz festivals in South America. We were doing it in Chile and Argentina and Paraguay, and But anyway, I was in Cordoba, Argentina, in this little village called Villa General Belgrano.
Okay.
I got to tell you something. This little town, once you went into a certain little area, it was like you were in Germany, I swear to you. It was like being in Germany. But anyway, there was this festival called Festival in the Woods. And of course I was going to do it. Why not? Yeah, oh yeah, I'll be there. And my plane was late. So everyone that spoke English were already out in the festival, you know. They were all out there. And here I am, all my musicians speaking Spanish. I'm speaking English. I don't have arrangements, you know, I have charts, you know, that are just basically the keys and then chords underneath it. They're supposed to know the songs, but they can't read what the song is. They just know the bass notes underneath it, you know, so no melody. And I had to get an hour show together before going in. And the way we did it, we go, ba-da-ba, oh, see, you know. I said, okay, uno, that's what, we got it, you know. But, and then that's how we got the show together. But that was so much fun. Of course, they say, you know, music is the international
language,
of the heart. Yeah, the music, yeah, is the international language of the heart, and that is so true. Anyway, that's one of them. Anyway,
that's so much fun.
Yeah.
You've been to a few different countries, I think. How many countries have you been to? Tell me some of the places you've been.
Oh gosh, well, Europe. Yeah, I went to Western Europe. I did a concert tour with Adam Makovich all throughout Poland, which was very interesting. That was really interesting. We did that maybe 3 times, 3 different concerts all over Poland.
Wow.
And we were doing concerts in big, you know, these big, beautiful concert halls where Stravinsky played, they said. Wow. And I was sitting there where they said Stravinsky had sit there, here little old me, getting ready to go out and do a little bit of Gershwin with the great Adam Makovich. And of course, he was a big star over there, and I was just me. But I was singing Gershwin with him. You know, he did the first part of the show, and I came out of the gown and all of that, and I did the second half. And boy, that was really, we were treated like royalty. Stayed in a palace, you know, did all of that,
Wow.
that kind of thing. Okay, Asia, Singapore, you know, all over Europe, France, England, that kind of thing, all over South America. All throughout Canada. I opened for Roy Orbison way back when, in the month of February.
In Canada, oh my goodness.
In Canada, why, you know? We would slide out on the hockey.
Was it outside? Or
No, it would be in great big where they played hockey. And you slide, you know, kind of over to the ramp that would lead you to the stage, you know? It's just crazy.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
Gail, with such a rich, colorful past behind you, what's next? What are you working on right now?
Oh, goodness. I've got my fingers crossed that we can actually do this. I wrote a whole bunch of music. Not a whole bunch. I mean, depending on what you call a bunch. I mean, you know, 20, okay. You know, pretty much 20.
1 is a bunch for me since I don't like music, so.
Anyway, I want to record these songs, and there's something that I really feel, and the lyrics are saying what you know, we want to express. And my sons, Trip and Artie Bratton, are just amazing for the sketches that we've done, the musical sketches that we've done of these songs. And now I'm really wanting to find a way to record those songs and really do them right, arrange them correctly, you know, rewrite the lyrics a little bit, which is needed, and kind of firm them up and put it out here. Who knows, you know, I mean.
You want to give us one of those lyrics? You got them in your head right now? You think you can do it?
I'll do you.
You just go. I've seen you do it.
Well, you know, I did one with March Madness Marching Band. You know, my son Trip is kind of their musical director. And we did a video of our song, We Will Survive. And it goes, in a world filled with illusion, greed and progress stand hand in hand, trying to control us through division. Time we band together, make our stand. Time is now to deprogram, because deep inside we're all the same. The child within wants the power back. Speaking loud and clear, we will not be tamed. We will survive. We will survive. And then it goes on like that. And then it's singing songs of new beginnings. Melodies sing of our faith. Satellite, universal hookup. First time in history we can all communicate. And then another wave of light, enlightenment, is shining on us. A leap of love and joy and grace. The human spirit, never ending. people of the world come face to face. And we will survive. We will survive. And the bridges, bring your instrument. This is when percussion goes crazy and, you know, trips the best. Can he play percussion or what?
Crazy good.
Bring your instruments of love and come and join the band. Forget the differences created by man. United in the spirit, I just know we can create a new and wondrous, joyous, happy land. We will survive.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Thank you, Gail. I sure hope that you get that grant and that we get that produced so that we can all hear it. But if not, hopefully we'll have a time when we can at least have you come back to the library and perform some of your original music.
I would love to do that. I would just love that.
Yeah, I think that'd be so fantastic. Gail, thank you so much for being with us today. And folks, we're going to get to hear Gail Wynters and company perform a couple songs here to close out the show. So we will have the band on in just a minute. Stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, thanks for listening.
You can catch more of Gail Wynters at our upcoming virtual concert, which will premiere October 15th at 7 p.m. on our Facebook page. You can also access it later on our YouTube channel. Up next, we will shine the spotlight on Jessamine County notable teen Avery Irwin. You'll be able to hear all the interesting things she's been up to in the community as teen librarian Jacqueline Cooper interviews her.
Hi everyone, welcome to the JCPL Teen Talk Show segment. I'm Jacqueline and I'm here with Avery Irwin, and she's our first teen guest. Avery is in 6th grade and she's the winner of the state 4-H competition for the Communication Award in Natural Resources. And you won the award for your knot tying demonstration, all tied up in knots?
Yes.
Yes? That's a cute title. How did you come up with that?
My parents actually thought of it. They said it was based off a saying, all tied up in knots. And I'm like, that actually sounds really cool because my topic is knots, so I think that would be a really cool title. So.
That's great. I love that title. And so what made you decide to join 4-H?
Well, I've always been good at like demonstrating, talking in front of crowds. I actually realized it when I did a talent show in 4th grade in front of the whole school. 600 people plus parents, I think. And then, so that's when I realized I don't get very nervous in front of crowds. Once I start doing stuff, I practically forget they're there. I just go with it, and I realized I'm really good at demonstrating, so I thought. And then when 4-H came, I'm like, oh, well, I think I would be good in that, so.
Yeah, that's great. I saw your demonstration. It was really good. And how long have you been in 4-H?
I've done it demonstrating twice, 2 years. In 4th grade, I made it to state, and in 5th grade, I did to state as well.
Oh, wow.
In 4th grade, they actually had the option of doing demonstrating, so I chose to do it. But in 5th grade, you have to do it, and since I've done it in 4th grade already, I knew it was going to happen, and I knew that what was going to happen, what was going on, and I just had to. So I was like, I'm going to do it.
So you have a lot of fun though in 4-H?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you enjoy about being a 4-H member?
Well, in 4th grade, I did go to a 4-H camp, which was really fun. My mom came with me. It was really fun, and I love because you get to do speeches, you get to do demonstrations. They just offer a variety of opportunities where you can find out what you're really good at, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you've won some awards, right? You said. Do you have some of your awards with you here? I see you've got some ribbons, maybe, medals?
Yeah. So this medal and blue ribbon were from this year, actually, in county when I was competing against kids of my age group at school. So this is the medal, and then here's the blue ribbon for winning 1st place. So.
That's really cool. I like that medal.
And then this one is from district, where I was competing with kids who won county. And then this one is for regionals where I was competing against kids who won district. Since the state one and regionals was online, they had to mail the ribbon to me, so I don't have it yet. So that's why I don't have it.
So you're still waiting for that one? Oh. So how did it feel winning first place?
It was really fun, and I felt like that I could possibly do a career with speeches because it allowed me to realize that I'm really good at speeches, and I love it. Winning is fun. Everyone loves to win.
That's true. That is fun to win. And you chose knot tying for your demonstration. Can you show us one of your knots that you tied?
Yeah. My favorite is the bowline knot, and I found a rhyme with this one as well. So this one, the rhyme is the story of the rabbit. So you make a loop within your rope. You push it up through so the rabbit comes out of his hole, runs around the tree, and then goes back into his hole. So then you pull it tight.
That's great. I love the rhyme. Did you come up with that rhyme?
I actually looked it up on this website called boyslife.org.
So you had to do a lot of research?
Yeah, that's where I found out all my other knots that I wanted to do.
Is that your favorite knot?
Yes, because it's a life-saving knot, basically. Because you can use it if you fall off a cliff, onto a ledge, or down a hole. The people who are rescuing you can tie this into a rope and lower it down, and it's super strong, and so it can pull you right out. So that's why I love it. It's without it, you could be seriously injured.
Yeah, so you can help people too. That's great. And do you have, you said you made up a rhyme in your presentation. Can you show us that one?
Yes.
The rhyme you made up?
That goes, this one is the square knot. So the rhyme is, so the snake goes in front of the tree, into the badger hole, comes back out of the badger hole, goes back in front of the tree and into the fox hole.
That is so cool. I love that. And I love the rhyme. You just made that up? That's so great. You're very talented.
Yes.
You're welcome. So you've presented quite a bit, you say. How many times have you presented?
4 times this year, plus a ton of practicing.
Right. And so you presented online this year, you said?
Yes.
And you presented in person before?
Yes.
In front of a lot of people. Which do you prefer?
I like in person better because when you're doing it, you can see the people's reactions. When you're doing it, you can see if they like it and want to know more. While online, you just have to send them the video and hope that they like it and want to learn more. So I just like the feedback.
Yeah, the feedback, yeah. That's important, I think, when you're doing something. And do you find it scary at all?
Sometimes when it's in front of a lot of people, but what I tell so basically I'm doing 2 things at once. I'm basically doing the demonstration, but in my head I'm saying, come on, you can do it. It's okay. It's not really scary once you get to do it. So
I'll have to remember that when I have to get in front of a bunch of people. And have you decided what your entry is going to be next year, or have you thought about that?
I'm not sure yet, but I'm interested in horses right now, so maybe something on horses. So.
Oh, I love horses.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Do you have a horse?
No, but I really want one.
Yeah. So do you have any advice you can give some of our team that have to do a demonstration?
Yeah. So when you're doing a demonstration or any kind of speech or something in front of other people, just think that it's not as bad once you've practiced it and you know it. Once I do it, I start forgetting people are there and I just go with it. So I just say that just don't be nervous. They're not going to call you out and say you're out because you mess up. Just keep trying because they know you're not perfect, that no one can do a speech without messing up at least once or twice. So just know that they won't call you out because you messed up once.
That's great advice. That's great advice. It's been such a pleasure talking with you, Avery.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for agreeing to do this interview.
Thanks for being on the show, Avery. Up next is STEAM with Chantel. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics. In this segment, our STEM specialist, Chantel Richardson, will interview Dr. Ben Brammell, a biology professor of Asbury University. Here they are now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the JCPL Show. I'm Chantel, and this is STEAM with Chantel. We're here on location at Asbury University with Dr. Ben Brammell.
Hi, Chantel. My name is Ben Brammell. I'm a biology professor here at Asbury University. I teach and do research in the field of ecology and environmental science, and have been here for 10 years. Okay.
When did your interest in studying biology begin?
Chantel, I've always had a really keen interest in animals, as far back as I can remember. As a kid, I had collections of salamanders and frogs and fish and snakes. When I was in 4th grade, we had a pet caiman, which is essentially an alligator, in the room. And one person got to take it home for spring break each year, and I got to take it home, and I was super excited about that. So as far back as I can remember, I've loved animals and just spent all the time that I could pursuing and observing and capturing animals.
How much time do you spend in the field and in the classroom?
Well, Chantel, we do go in the field frequently. I would like to be in the field all the time if that was possible, but of course it's not possible. You can't always take lecture classes into the field. But this morning, for instance, in our ecology class, we were out in the field collecting invertebrates. We do a lot of electrofishing, working with aquatic organisms. Aside from it being what I've always done research with, it's a great way to introduce students to the natural world, because there's nothing they can get. They can't get any diseases from these organisms, like rabies. If we were working with mammals, for instance, they're very easy to catch very quickly. And we capture somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 species of fish in our local streams, which is astounding. And so it gives us a really good chance to look at these assemblage of organisms in ecosystems that we just couldn't do if we looked at terrestrial organisms. So we spend a good bit of time in the field. Research-wise, it's a split between the field and the lab. And so we go to the field to collect samples. That's really probably the most fun part of research. And then we do maintain organisms in the lab for various reasons for research. But then we spend a lot of time in the laboratory as well, conducting molecular analysis on those samples that we collected.
Very nice. Tell me a little bit more about your past research.
Well, Chantel, originally I was an aquatic toxicologist, and so my PhD is in biology, but the research is aquatic toxicology. And so that was really interesting research and good research to career-wise, because it did involve a great deal of lab and field work. I had some experience with fish and knowledge of fish from a previous undergraduate and then my master's program. And so in that research, we looked at the responses of fish populations to really high levels of pollution in different parts of Kentucky. And what we saw was something that's been observed in other parts of the world, that some of these organisms had evolved tolerance to that contamination. We do have, although we're fortunate to live in a state that's relatively clean compared to other states in the U.S. overall, we do have some pockets that are very, very contaminated. And so interestingly, fish in these areas, at least some species, have developed the ability to persist in spite of that contamination.
Very interesting. Continue and tell me more about your current research.
Well, my current research it still involves a blend of field work and lab work. But in about 2012 or so, someone came up with this idea that you could use DNA to identify the organisms that are present in the environment. And so the basic idea is this, that all animals that live in the environment are excreting DNA. Now, this has been used for terrestrial organisms too, but it's more applicable to aquatic organisms because they're in direct contact with the water, and the DNA they release diffuses throughout the system in which they live. So each organism, this is one of the most interesting things in biology, each organism has a unique sequence a unique DNA sequence. And so it is the bases of DNA, the A, C, T, and G. It's the order of those bases that determine the organism. And so humans, for instance, have 3.2 billion or so of those bases. Many salamanders that we work with have a much bigger genome than that. And so the sequence, even among different individuals within a species, is unique, but certainly from one species to the next, They're unique sequences of bases. And so you can use that sequence of bases to determine which species the DNA belongs to. This means that this so-called environmental DNA is useful because let's say that we want to find a very rare organism. That's the most common application of environmental DNA, although there are many others. We have a number of salamander species in the state. There's about 20 or so that we collect here in central Kentucky. So this is a spotted salamander, which is a beautiful little salamander. They're not, I wouldn't call them uncommon in central Kentucky, but they're not something you see every day. They're burrowing salamanders. And so this is, this is a little bit on the big end of a salamander that we would commonly see. But hellbenders, on the other hand, are the only member of the giant salamander family that we have in Kentucky. And they get to be 2 feet long. But they're very, very difficult to locate. And so hellbenders live at the bottom of streams, the bottom of the Kentucky River, underneath really huge boulders. So a very good way to look for them is environmental DNA. The hellbenders are releasing DNA, so you can go to the stream, take a water sample, filter the DNA from the water, and then you look at the sequences of DNA in that filtered sample. And you'll have DNA from hundreds of different sources, but the molecular techniques that are available today allow us to pick out the DNA from that one species that we're interested in. So that's the basic idea, and we employ, there's a lot of demand for it. It's a very recent technique, so we employ environmental DNA to look for things like salamanders. We've looked for endangered species of frogs that are found in the Sierra Nevada mountains. We do a lot of work with fish, environmental DNA, looking for certain species of fish.
Tell me some things you would like the community to know about biology diversity.
Chantel, one of my favorite things to talk about, and something I feel like people miss out on a lot of times, and it would enrich their lives, is the diversity of animals that we have here in Kentucky. So we're part, just barely, but part of the Southeast, and the southeastern United States is really rich in terms of diversity. Now, of course, we don't stack up with South and Central America, but as far as the Northern Hemisphere goes, we're not doing too bad at all. And so we have this huge number of species around us. And I don't know, but it seems like many people are unaware of many of these. And so we looked at the salamander earlier. It's so easy to miss out on salamanders. The spotted salamander I showed you, they'll move across the road in the hundreds in the spring. And I know a large percentage of people just drive along, probably smashing them as they go and just unaware. And I was guilty of that myself at one particular point in time. We have 33 snake species in the state. Something that always pains me a little bit is when people, kill snakes and cringe when they think about snakes. This is one of my favorite snakes that I have here in the department. And one of I wouldn't definitely call it rare, but it's one of our really beautiful snake species in the state. It's a king snake, an eastern king snake. We have 2 patterns that are found in the state, and the snakes, are just all around us, and certainly something we can look at and appreciate. Black rat snakes are the most common large snake that we have here in central Kentucky, and then garter snakes, of course, are everywhere as well. We also have over 100 mussel species that are found in the state, and he's a pretty strong little guy. And so mussel species are definitely something that's easy to miss out on. And so this is a washboard mussel from the Kentucky River. These things are unbelievably common in the river close to here. And so when we, for instance, put nets into the river and pull up those nets, the goal of the nets are to catch fish, but there's so many of these at the bottom that we always end up with a pile of these that come from the bottom of the river. Now, I should point out, these are old shells. These guys have a long, long time, and they died a long, long time ago. But the shells are at the bottom of the river. Of course, we never collect live mussel species, but we have this great diversity of animals around us in the state. We have 200, for instance, and 40-something fish species that are found in Kentucky, which is amazing. When you go to the western states, you just have a handful of species, but we have this huge diversity of species that are found in the waters and the woods of the state.
Lastly, tell me some environmental issues here in Kentucky.
Well, Chantel, we're fortunate, as I mentioned before, that we don't suffer from the acute toxicity issues that other places, like, really highly populated states like New York does. But we have, we share some of the environmental issues that many other states do. We have our share of introduced species. And so as you look around the state, that's another thing that is not always immediately evident to people, but a large number of the animals you see around you are not supposed to be here, but they're what we refer to as introduced exotic species. And so our goal in science today is to maintain things in the natural state. And so by that we mean the original state. And so as we look at animals and manage animals, we try to keep the native animals, the ones that were here originally, in place and protect them and get rid of the exotic animals. Oftentimes the exotic animals have harmful effects on the native animals. And so some examples of introduced exotic species, especially, I guess I'll start with ones in the aquatic world. This is Corbicula, the Asian clam. And so this is not one that has a very profound impact on lots of other species, but it's everywhere in the state, absolutely everywhere. We just came from Jessamine Creek, a couple miles from here, and a couple of semesters ago, students were doing their lab exercise, and they found 800 in a 1 meter little quadrat. So there are just tremendous numbers of these guys, and they're found everywhere throughout Kentucky and most of the rest of the United States. We now have zebra mussels in the state, so zebra mussels are a huge issue throughout the United States. When I went to school here at Asbury years ago, there were no zebra mussels down in the Kentucky River. I'd go there and fish, and you'd never find a zebra mussel. But since then, they made their way here. They're spreading out across the United States. Zebra mussels attached to our native mussels, preventing them from opening and killing them. And in fact, they're very competitive with our native mussels. They filter some of the same food as our native mussels and have impacts on our native species. One that's talked about a tremendous amount right now are Asian carp. So we've had European carp for years and years and years in the state, for 100 years most likely, and they are absolutely everywhere and get quite large, and we've kind of come to terms with those and accepted those. But the Asian carp have just moved in the past decade, and so there's a tremendous amount of talk today about getting rid of those. And I was looking at nets yesterday, and there's special nets advertised for Asian carp, and there's all kinds of, there's a business, if I'm not mistaken, in western Kentucky that's trying to market those, and we're trying to come up with ways to deal with those species. So, and then of course we have our traditional problems in the terrestrial realm, kudzu and bush honeysuckle being good examples of invasive exotic plants that are present. We have lots of invasive birds as well, starlings, for instance, English sparrows. So invasive exotic species are certainly an issue in our state, as they are throughout, well, much of the rest of the world today.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for tuning in to STEAM with Chantel.
Thank you, Chantel and Dr. Brammell. That's all we have time for today. Thanks so much for watching the JCPL Show. We hope you'll share this with your friends and that we'll see you in the library soon. Remember that you can stay up to date with everything going on at the Jessamine County Public Library by visiting our website at jesspublib.org. Until next time.
Well, it's the talk of the town. I said the talk of the town. JCPL Show is now the talk of the town. Lots of information and entertainment too. You'll be quite excited when you see what's here for you. It's the talk of the town. I see the talk of the town. Turn right in and see what you can do. Meet a local hero and a new friend for you. Listen to some music and enjoy.